What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is Atriox and welcome back to another video. So I've been kind of talking about it for a while now, but this video is going to be specifically for what I want to see in the next Mortal Kombat game. Obviously there are things that have come out that like kind of looks like that there might be another more content in the future. So I'm still gonna make this video regardless, because I think that, you know, no matter what DLC comes out, I don't think it's gonna fix some of the issues that a lot of fans have, including myself. So, you know, even if they knock it out the park, like, I still want these changes implemented into the next game, because I think, you know, if you really want to just knock it out the park with Mortal Kombat, you need to understand what the community wants and what the fan want and the consumer wants, and not just make what you want to make because you think that, you know, it's good for yourself. Because I think that's the thing that's missing with NRS right now, is that they're not making things that fans want to see, or if they are doing it like that, they're doing it for a specific fans of the game. Now, take for example, Mortal Kombat 11 was catered towards casuals, right? What did they do for the next game? They completely shifted it on its head, took away all the casual elements, and made it more competitive. Now the casuals are alienated, versus in MK11 when competitive players were alienated. They need to find the balance for both. That is the issue that NRS is facing right now, is not being able to tap into both things. And like, you can create stories and swap characters' origins and stuff like that, but do it in a good way, you know what I mean? I think the implementation of certain things they did not go well. I don't know why they had to shift Hanzo out of being Scorpion. I think that was a bad idea. Hanzo is probably the most recognizable character in Mortal Kombat outside of Sub-Zero, and you're taking two characters that were the most recognizable and put them into one character where Hanzo's not in the picture, and now Kuai Liang is both Scorpion and people recognize him as being Sub-Zero. Like, I think there are mistakes made in the meetings of what they're going to go for. It's like, you can make changes to stories and backgrounds, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. It's the implementation, I don't know, I can't say that word right now. It's the implementation of the character stories that you're trying to tell. Because meanwhile, yes, you're taking away what made Scorpion Scorpion, because all of the tragedy, all the backstory is gone. Scorpion shouldn't have fire abilities at this point, because Hanzo only got the fire abilities because he was because he came from the nether realm. He was resurrected as a specter. So it's just weird how you try and force him to have fire ability. It don't make sense. And on top of that, if you really go deeper into that, where you have Kuai Liang's family are all cryomancers. There's no fire abilities in their bloodline as far as we know. Like, there's no information saying that there is in this new timeline, but it just doesn't make sense for him to be Scorpion. That's what I'm trying to say at the end of the day. Like, and then the gender swaps of Cyrax and Sector, people didn't like that, honestly. Like, I don't know, I'm 50-50 on it. I didn't like it when it first came out, but it is what it is. I'm kind of used to it at this point. Like, I think what they tried to do was kind of play on the Serena romance with Sub-Zero. So instead of putting Serena with Bihan, they switched it up and put Sector with Bihan, which is a little interesting, because, like, I mean, when you consider Sector, how Sector saw the original Sub-Zero, Sector, like, was fiercely loyal to the original Sub-Zero, because the original Sub-Zero held all of, like, the principles of what it meant to be a Lin Kuei before Kuai Liang changed everything and all like that. He was basically what, you know, he should have, that Sector looked up to, because Sub-Zero back then was like the perfect Lin Kuei warrior was Sub-Zero. Because I believe Sub-Zero, I believe he's older than Sector. I believe. Or they might be the same age. They might be the same age. They probably grew up and they're probably like really good friends. Like, I don't know. They never really explored that, so it's kind of like this guessing at this point. But I think if they want to shift this game to being something that the fans are going to enjoy, they need to change their perspective. They need to stop with the woke BS, bro. I'm gonna keep it a stack. Stop with the woke stuff. Stop with all that nonsense. It's not necessary for a Mortal Kombat game. It's a Mortal Kombat game, bro. It's about fighting. It's about dark stories. It's about, you know, defending your realm. That's what Mortal Kombat is. And I don't know if shifting the story to a peaceful story was the right move, but it could still end up being the right move if you implement the next game right. Because for example, let's take into the fact that, okay, this game was more peaceful, but we saw elements that weren't that way. Like, if you take the story at face value, the story itself wasn't bad. Right before the whole Titan stuff came into the play, because they built the story. You had Raiden as the champion. Raiden got his power back from the amulet with Liu Kang. You had all the good guys getting set up with Ashura, Reptile, Liu Kang, and what you call it, Kuai Liang, Smoke. You had the forces of light there, and then you had Bihan turn, and Bihan is now, he's not for Outworld, for Earthrealm. They're like right in it. They're neutral right now. And then you have Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Shao Kahn, Raiko. Like you had all the you had Goro on that side. You had established the bad guys in the story, and you established the good guys in the story. In my opinion, there was no need to pull the trigger to bring in the Titans. The Titans, in my opinion, ruined the story. It ruined the story because it was rushed. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like it felt like they had a direction for most of the story up into that Titan part. Once the Titan part came into play, it felt like they lost what they were doing. Like they couldn't figure out how to progress the story without some kind of timeline stuff happening. And mind you, I've said it a few times in past videos. I believe the Shang Tsung part when he's a Titan could have been a story DLC. Like it didn't need to be a part of the official game, because here, what's the point of Mortal Kombat 1's story? The point of Mortal Kombat 1's story is to set the stage for the new era. So these new stories, new alliances, new all this. It's supposed to like show you like there's a different path that Mortal Kombat 1 is going. But the issue with what happened was that they didn't do it the right way. They didn't implement the story the way they should have implemented it. And my thing was, I don't think they had Shao Kahn, Quan Chi, and Shang Tsung. Like these are like big bads. And like yes, they're watered down compared to the original versions, but there's still 3 of them, bro. Like the triple deadly alliance. I don't know what you would call it. Like you had these bad guys already set up, and then you pulling the trigger on that Titan kind of ruined the story. I'm gonna be honest. And I know maybe not everybody cares about the story, but people who do care about the story, like me, like a lore, people who follow the lore, it's different, bro. You can't just crap out on the story. And because like think about it, like Mortal Kombat media story is there, bro. It's like movies, cartoons, what you call it, multiple games, branching out side games, Shaolin Monks, special forces, mythologies. Like the story of Mortal Kombat matters whether you like it or not. Even if you're not a fan of the lore stuff, it's the story and the backgrounds are great. Look at Mortal Kombat look at the conquest modes in Mortal Kombat Armageddon and Mortal Kombat Deception. They also brought back backstories upon backstories of characters. Like you knew what people were doing in during those games. Like in Armageddon, you found out that Raiden was working with Shinnok in them to kind of like, you know, protect Earthrealm and all that stuff. Like there was different, like you learned about the Cocoon in the Armageddon story. You learned that Shujinko was responsible for everything that happened in Deception. You learned that he trained certain characters, like he trained Li Mei to fight so she could be able to protect her people in Deadly Alliance. Like there's this lore of Mortal Kombat is important because you find out like their alliances, you find out background stories that you can't normally see in the story trailers, which I'm gonna get into the whole conquest thing later on in the video, but I just kind of want to set the stage for what this video is going to be about. This video is going to be long. I put a poll to see what people wanted to see in terms of like the length of the video, and people wanted to see one long video, and I'm fine with that. I just didn't know how exactly you guys wanted to present it, because this type of video is going to be long because we'll be talking about everything in here, right? So we'll be talking about the story. We're going to be talking about we might talk about characters that's kind of off script. We'll talk about crypt mode, we'll talk about game modes, we'll talk about multiplayer, what I would expect to see in the first day release, and just anything else that I think is worth talking about. But before we get that deep into the video, I just kind of want to see, you know, if you guys haven't already, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. We're basically going to be doing these type of videos as we go forward. Obviously you guys know I do the reactions to Mortal Kombat news and stuff like that, and I talk about like scenarios and stuff like that. I even do fan fiction stories, which I'm going to talk about later on, because we're about to start start hiring for the next auditions. About to start hiring for the next characters for the next story, because I have plans for the next story to be out by the end of April. So right now I'm gonna start doing the plans and start talking to people and see what I can do, because I want to get voices that fit this time around, because this story needs to be told a certain way, and this story is a lot more emotional than the first story. So we'll talk about that at the end of the video, so you know, be on the lookout for that. But anyways, before we get into too deep into the video, if you guys do me a favor, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. You know, I'm Atriox and I make Mortal Kombat content. I make all types of content, but most of the time, most of the stuff you'll see on the channel is Mortal Kombat. We've been doing Marvel Rivals and some other stuff, but yeah, at the end of the day, that's not really important. Anyways, so let's get into what we're here for, right? So we're gonna talk about just generally what I want to see in the next Mortal Kombat game, right? So let's get this out the way first. The next Mortal Kombat game needs to be darker. Okay, no peace. The peace needs to be going away. It needs to be a lot darker. So we're gonna start with the story. So what made Mortal Kombat so good back in the 3D era? The story. The actual story of Mortal Kombat was dark, and it felt like, you know, it felt like no matter what happened, what the heroes did, they lost. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, they lost. Mortal Kombat Deception, they lost. It took to Mortal Kombat Armageddon where it felt like they were getting out, but they were just, the good guys were getting their ass kicked the whole time. When Liu Kang died, that's when they just started losing. Liu Kang died. They lost the tournament in the Deadly Alliance. The person that won the tournament still lost. She got her soul implemented into this mummy and then lost her way. And then the only person that was left to defend Earthrealm was Raiden, because all the other heroes were gone. Like, they were all defeated by the Deadly Alliance. And that includes Shao Kahn and Outworld's warriors. They were defeated as well. Like, it took up to Armageddon to get everything back in order. Like, that Deception, Liu Kang's spirit was going around trying to get all the heroes that were under control of Onaga's spell back to normal. And then Armageddon's when they had that big clash. And then even then, the heroes still lost. They lost again. They lost in 3 games. They lost in Deception, these Deadly Alliance, and Armageddon. Because if you're going by the Mortal Kombat 9 ending or intro, like, Shao Kahn defeated everybody. The only person again that was left to defend Earthrealm was Raiden. Not even just Earthrealm, but all of existence was Raiden. So we need to, that's where we need to start. This is why in the beginning we're going to talk about the story getting darker and the gameplay. Everything about the game needs to be darker tones, like story, by character moves, like story, the actual stages, everything. I want to see Mortal Kombat kind of go back to that dark era, because I feel like that's where Mortal Kombat really shines the most. It's because Mortal Kombat is not like a peaceful type game. It's not like a Street Fighter game. Like, this is Mortal Kombat. There's blood, there's fatalities, there's animalities, harakiris. There's so many different types of dark type of like moves and stuff. It just feels weird when the story is too peaceful. And like, granted, Liu Kang's story, he meant to be the story to be more peaceful, but it's too late now. The Titan ruined that, and now all the villains are on the path to being what they're supposed to be. And the only way Liu Kang can stop it is by resetting the timeline, which I don't think they're gonna do again. And I think that's, if they do that again, it's kind of lazy writing, I'm not gonna lie. So they need to find a way to tell this story in a way that makes sense. So let's start with the story. If they're going to continue the route they're going with these characters, there needs to be a shift in the way the story is being presented. You may ask what's wrong with the route they've been taking, or why change it? Well, to that, I'll ask a question in return. Do you know what made the earlier installments of Mortal Kombat so good? If you can't think of the reason, I'll give it to you. The reason why those older Mortal Kombats were good was because of the tone of the story told. Like, for me, that's kind of where Mortal Kombat went wrong here. It never really felt like the good guys were on the verge of losing. And I could even go a little bit further back to MK11. MK11, like, was there high stakes? Sure, there were stakes, but none that felt like the forces of light were ever at a disadvantage. For the last, I would say, 4 games, I mean, this was MK1 included, the heroes have won. They haven't lost. Mortal Kombat 9, yes, the toll was high for their win, but they still won. Like, they were able to finally destroy Shao Kahn. And although they lost Liu Kang and the rest of the Earthrealm warriors, they were able to get Sub-Zero and Jax back in MKX. Which, we could talk about that too. MKX, like the Cassie Cage 1, no one really died in that story outside of, I think, Melina. And yeah, I think Melina was the only one that really died. It's been a while since I played the story. Maybe Kano. It's been a while since I played it. Would have to go back and just check it out. But from what I remember, the only person I can really remember that stuck out was Melina's death. No, Kano didn't die because he was in MK11. The old version was in an MK11. So yeah, it was just Melina. Melina was the only real one that I could think of. And basically, Cassie Cage defeats Shinnok with the power of Johnny Cage's, the Mediterranean power. And no Earthrealm characters died. The only character that died was Melina, who was from Outworld and was a bad guy. We don't count that simply because it doesn't really impact the whole point of this good guy stuff. So, and then MK11, Liu Kang stops Chronica and restarts history. Though Scorpion and Sonya do die, Hanzo and Sonya's deaths serve no purpose other than shock volume, because the younger iterations just kind of slide in and take their place. And then we have kind of like Mortal Kombat 1. Liu Kang stops Titan Shang Tsung and Quan Chi with the help of whatever character you choose. However, Sindel does die, but the whole story kind of felt like they were setting up for Melina to take power soon anyway, so she might have just stepped down regardless if she died or not. And I think it was more of a shock value thing again, because, you know, for someone who's been fighting for over 10,000 years, her laying down her guard and just kind of like, she was just kind of standing still for a moment. Like the way she was holding a sword, she could have easily just blocked that sword attack, and it just felt like, I don't know, it felt weird to see, to say the least. And at this moment, we don't know how it's going to affect Outworld, because we have had so little information on Outworld, kind of without Sindel, outside of the Outworld court scene in the beginning of Chaos Reigns, which in my opinion is not enough to go on. But let's get back to what I think the next game story should be. I think in the next game, Liu Kang and his forces of light need a loss. The game needs to be darker and establish these new versions of General Shao, Shang Tsung, and Quan Chi as the real threats. Right now, they feel watered down. They're like the watered down versions of the originals, which is basically what they are and what Liu Kang's plans are. But in order to get the ball rolling for these characters, like there needs to be a way for the game to have a time skip of a significant amount. I think a good way to achieve this is a time skip between MK1 and MK2. I'm not talking about the kind of time skip like MKX had was 25 years. That's way too long. I think a gap of 5 to 8 years would allow for a bunch of different plots to develop. And yeah, while I know it's a long time in between MK1 and 2, I think it's necessary to establish some things that are happening in intros and in endings. Okay. I have a list of just some of the stuff that I quickly read. I didn't go too deep into it, but just some things that I thought was, you know, automatically I could just recall from watching it and playing the game. Let's check on the first one. Hanzo looks to be around 13 to 15 years old, and with the time skip of about 8 years, he would be in his 20s. Allowing him to be playable in the next game, and kind of him taking the Takeda type role that they had at MKX for Takeda Takahashi. I think that'd be great to just kind of like bring back Hanzo and get the fans happy about him being back in the game. And then you have the second one with Shujinko and Raiden's sister. They will finally be done with their training with the Shaolin, which would allow them to be playable in the next game. And I just want to go talk about that a little bit more, because like if you look at Kung Lao's ending, Kung Lao did not train Shujinko the right way, and he failed as a mentor to him, which caused Shujinko to have a big inflated ego. Honestly, I don't really blame Kung Lao for with Shujinko, because Shujinko is an insanely powerful character, and I don't know how he's still as powerful as he used to be without the help of Damashi. I wonder if they'll explain why he still has the ability to inherit so many powers without Damashi's gifts. I'm sure they'll explain that to some degree if he comes back in that story. And obviously, Raiden's sister is probably going to be some form of Fujin. So it would be cool to see a Fujin type character in there. Or if it's just a whole different character, that'd be cool. I would love to see Fujin just return as his own character. Like, honestly, I would love to see any of those characters making it. And then we have like Kenshi. Like, Kenshi's story would be him trying to unite the Takahashi clan to break away from the Yakuza. And basically, in order for him to do that, he's gonna have to help Takeda deal with that Yakuza. So I think all in all, their still stories are kind of like ingrained with each other. And this could also open the possibility for Su Chen to be in the game. Like, there's no need to keep these characters there was no need to gender swap Sector and Cyrex. There are so many female characters that I've talked about in Mortal Kombat that could use that spotlight. Harumi, she was supposed to be a cameo character, but I think what's gonna happen is that this more stuff that's gonna happen is she's gonna be in a combat pack. Like, because I think they held it back because of the lady that was voicing her kind of like told it too early. I think maybe she was supposed to be in the combat pack for the second one, but because of what she said, they kind of had to push it back until people kind of forget about it. But you know, people ain't gonna forget about it. Like, if someone says something like that, they're gonna do it eventually. They're just gonna push it back because they want to wait. They don't want people to know when stuff is coming out, which is kind of like why they were trying to deal with the leakers the way they did. But anyways, I think the most important thing that this time skip would allow was for the forces of darkness to be able to hone their abilities and become the bigger threats that we know they could be. With the gap, we could see the forces of darkness really just strike on their own and really develop their abilities, making them much bigger threats in the future games. All the while, Titans are like, I just don't think the Titans are a good fit for where I think Mortal Kombat's story needs to go, and just the emphasis of Mortal Kombat. Like, honestly, I think the Titans are just taking the spotlight away from these other characters, and I really want them to go away. I think timeline stuff has kind of run its course. I think you can't dive too much into times because it gets stale and it gets boring. And honestly, NRS, throughout all the NRS games, they've had some kind of time stuff, and I'm kind of sick of it. I want the time stuff to go away. I don't think it's allowing for the story to really blossom the way it could be going right now. So this would also allow certain dialogues to already happen for pretty much. Like, certain characters had dialogues where they kind of revealed some other personal stuff, like such as Li Mei meeting her parents, or Takeda dealing with the Yakuza, Kitana becoming close friends with Countess Jade, and maybe there's a point where Kitana finds out the relationship between Liu Kang and her previous timeline version of herself. Like, a lot of these stories could unfold, and then we can get some more answers and some more backstory, which I think is cool if they ever add like a conquest or something like that to the next game. Which, when you really think about it, the fact that Conquest didn't return when this whole game was like a love letter to 3D era fans, you know, it's weird to say the least. So you may ask, how can NRS achieve a story that takes the timeline stuff out of the game, which is the whole emphasis that I have for the beginning of the Mortal Kombat 2 game, or whatever they're gonna end up calling it. So how are they going to take the timeline stuff out of the game while also creating a darker tone that works in what Mortal Kombat 1 story was trying to achieve? Well, I do have some ideas for this, but before I get into that, I kind of want you guys to understand is that the main thing is holding back the story is the time stuff. I think the biggest challenge for NRS is going to be the elimination of the timeline crutch that they dug themselves into. Since the beginning of the NRS era, they've constantly used time to manipulate the story. Like with Raiden sending his memories back in time to fix some stuff that he didn't back in the day. I think MKX kind of didn't do anything with the time, which I thought was cool because they had a unique story about him. But then either way, the timeline stuff that happened in MK9 kind of impacted MKX's story either way. And then you have MK11, which timeline stuff just kind of went up crazy in that story. And then we have now where we have Titans as a kind of like jumping in and out of the story. I think it's time for them to change it up and as for them to just really branch out, creating new evil characters and challenges across the realms. For the life of me, I can't figure out why they won't explore the other realms, man. Like, and yes, I understand Edenia and Chaos Realm no longer exist in this timeline. However, we still have Order Realm, we have Veternus, and we have the Nether Realm to really just dive into and explore. And let's not forget that in this timeline, Shao didn't become a conqueror. So the realms that he merged before he got to Edenia and before he tried to get Earth Realm exist. You know what I mean? Zaytara, Veternus, Aztec are some of the more notable realms, but there's other realms like the Kai-10, and it's just something, I think something is really to think about. And, you know, I have like 3 ideas of how I think they can approach this and really just cut the time stuff out and get back to making a creative and awesome story. So, and before we get into these ideas, I want people to understand that like this is not really critique on NetherRealm. It's just that I think that there are better ways of doing things, in my opinion. And you know, if you get mad at the opinion I have, then I don't really care. If I'm being honest, I don't care if you get mad at my opinion. This whole video is how I think things can be better from just a 34-year-old MK fan that's been around since the beginning of Mortal Kombat. So like, while my intention is not really to call people out, at the same time, like, I don't even have to do anything like that. The Chaos Ring sales themselves you can just see why people didn't buy the Chaos Rings, and just see that people are fed up with the woke stuff in Mortal Kombat. I think it needs to go back to, and not even go back, like you can use a little bit of that stuff and add a little bit of this from the past and just put it together and write it in the way where it shows love to the old fans and it shows love to new fans of Mortal Kombat. That's the point I'm trying to make with this video. That's the whole point of this. So anyways, so I have the 3 ideas, and the first one, okay. So the first one is Liu Kang has had enough of invaders crossing over to his timeline, and he uses the remaining Keeper of Time powers that he has to fix all the timelines, fusing it back into one singular timeline, which would exhaust his power, but it would allow for one singular timeline to exist. Now, doing so would also fuse memories of countless versions of the main characters, which would create an interesting dynamic, seeing a story kind of revolve around which character which version of the character kind of like comes out on top. It could be interesting, but I'm not sure how practical this idea would be, because like I feel like this will need multiple games in order to be implemented the right way. So in the way Mortal Kombat, with the way NRS is, they don't really develop stories going long term just recently. So I don't know how exactly they will go about doing this. So I kind of like, that's just an idea that I had came up with. The next idea, honestly, is Liu Kang traveling back to the moment right after Shang Tsung kills the Liu Kang from his ending. And basically he just goes back and stops, pretty much just stops him from becoming a keeper of time. This would also have stopped the other invaders from coming to our timeline, as the only reason Havoc knew about Liu's timeline was because of Shang Tsung coming to recruit him, which we find out in the story of the Chaos Reigns. But there are some consequences for this as well. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi and possibly General Shao would likely have took a lot longer to turn on Sindel and kind of like put their plan into action, because they needed somebody to get them out of their lives. Who knows if they even ever get out of that? But considering who they are, I feel at some point they would eventually kind of go down that path. Maybe that might not have been as strong as they used to be in the previous timeline, but I think that it was impossible for them not to go down the path. And there is also the possibility that Jared will still be alive. The reason I think this, it was kind of because I think his death was orchestrated by Titan Shang Tsung. In order to carry out his plan, he needed Jared out of the way because he wanted the younger version of himself to be able to influence Sindel. I think that was the whole plan. But if I'm being honest, I kind of feel like this will kind of be a reuse of the MK9 story intro, which would be kind of lazy in my opinion. I just thought I'd throw it in there to see what you guys think about it. Now, the final idea, and this is probably my favorite one. I would like this setting here where the game opens up and Titan Katana, Titan Kung Lao, Titan Jade, and Titan Raiden come through a portal, badly wounded, asking Liu Kang for help. And Titan Shao Kahn basically has conquered all the other timelines, and Liu Kang is the last one left. So basically, Shao Kahn found a way to absorb the hourglasses into his own, boosting his power. And because the hourglass weren't technically destroyed, the Titans haven't disappeared. Because the whole basis was MK1. They said that if you destroyed the hourglass, the timeline would cease to exist. But they never really said anything if it was merged. So if it's merged, it's possible that the power just gets added to it. The Titans might not go away. Maybe they might lose some power, but they'll probably have enough to keep going. And basically, because of this, now Khan is hunting them down. Like all the former keepers of time, if he adds them to his power, he basically just wants to stop. He just wants to become all powerful, kind of like the original concept for Shao Kahn. I think that's kind of the route I think the story should go. And I think this will kind of restore a sense of impossibility and that sense of dread that only Shao Kahn can really inspire. I would set up that the heroes they have to lose. This was like really set up for that darker tone I was talking about earlier. So the story would actually adapt elements of the Mortal Kombat 3 story, if I'm being honest. At some point, Liu Kang and his champions would square off against Shao Kahn and his forces and lose badly. Perhaps two characters would end up dying, maybe like Johnny Cage and Reptile, and perhaps having Smoke survive, but he'd be badly wounded. I think he should start with going to Outworld first before going to Earthrealm, and having him basically defeat Mileena and Katana and them, and just like Mileena and Katana and other Outworld champions would run over to kind of like Liu Kang's realm to ask for his help. And this is kind of where I think Reptile should die, because I think Reptile should die protecting Mileena, and like therefore, and then he basically allows him to escape, but he ends up dying. And I think like as the fight keeps going on, the timelines should begin to merge each other, kind of like if you remember Mortal Kombat 2 story, the movie. Even though like the movie isn't good, like kind of like elements of that I think could be cool with them slowly merging, because like now the elder gods can't stop Shao Kahn. So it would be a cool thing to see, I think. So I even thought about writing this story based on it, but like I feel like I want to get through my first story. Once I get through the first story, maybe we'll talk about other things that we could do with it. I don't know, we'll see when we get to that point. But anyways, there's also an option to just move past the timeline stuff altogether and just ignore it. Other games have done this before. Halo's done that. There's a bunch of games that just go past the bad story and just kind of continues on where they're going. Now, if they're just gonna move past the timeline stuff altogether, I think Onaga would make sense to establish an impossible threat. We know Rico goes to tame the Dragon King, and apparently he succeeds. Now, mind you, this is a story. This is going to be a whole different story compared to what I just talked about with the intro. That intro was specifically just to get rid of the timeline stuff. This is like another possible outcome they could do, like a fourth story, if they want to just go past it altogether instead of dealing with the timeline stuff. So anyways, we know Rico goes to tame the Dragon King, and apparently he succeeds. In the intro between Tanya and General Shao, he tells Tanya that they tamed Onaga. So we could start the story off with Onaga listening to General Shao, but you know, kind of early on have it so Onaga breaks free and defeats everyone there. And we'd have it be like maybe the volcano was kind of like weakening his powers, and now that he's out of it, he's able to show his full power. So that's kind of like the route I think they should take, and it would bring Onaga. And Onaga is like such a dope boss character. It'd be cool to see that happen. But early on, like I said, Onaga breaks free and he defeats them. But instead of killing them, he allows them to join his army as he begins to dominate the realms. And as the story progresses, we see General Shao and Rico start playing on how they can eliminate Onaga to take back control over his army. And it's kind of like, you know, basically what happened in the original timeline where, you know, Shao Kahn betrayed Onaga. That's kind of like where I want to go with this. So as they're planning it, you will see Shang Tsung and Quan Chi appear again and suggest poisoning and trapping him in the Netherrealm or something along those lines. And as Liu Kang and his champions are preparing to face off against Onaga, they are greeted by the now conqueror Shao Kahn. And during the fight, I think Johnny Cage needs to die here. He's supposed to die in the original timeline in the Mortal Kombat 3 era, and I think this could kind of like establish that. And considering like he's lived so many games without dying or missing one, I think Johnny Cage kind of makes the perfect catalyst. And you know, a lot of people love Johnny Cage, so it would hit hard too. I think Johnny Cage would be a good route for them to go. And you could do something like Ermac takes care of Johnny Cage's soul, and then like he's able to maybe not this game, maybe next game, bring Johnny Cage back by having him reanimate his body. I don't know, you can do something like that. But I just think that a hero needs to die, and for me the most impactful hero right now is Johnny Cage, because Raiden doesn't really feel like that pure, like, you know, protagonist. I think the fan base loves Johnny Cage enough to where it would mean something. So with Johnny Cage dying and his champions being badly beaten, I think Liu Kang should retreat with his champions back to Outworld. It's kind of a different take on Shao's original conquering story. There would be no need for a Titan to be the threat, and our current Shao Kahn will finally take his rightful place as a conqueror, as it was always meant to be. Those are just some of the ideas I've had in regards to the story aspect of the next Mortal Kombat game. Like, I just think that, you know, the tone needs to get shifted to being a darker game, because I feel like with these lighter stories, it doesn't really present a Mortal Kombat feel to the game, and like having that dark tone and just like an aggressive kind of approach to the game, and just like be as dark and as like balls to the wall as you can with the story. Like, for me, the story feels like it's protecting people's feelings. Like, it's okay to kill Kung Lao, or it's okay to kill a character in order to make it meaningful without having to replace them with a younger version of themselves or some other BS. Like, I think that there needs to be a space where the game just gets back to where its roots are, and that's it, and it being darker and just having that dark tone where like it feels like the heroes are gonna lose, and then like have them lose a game and then go back and win the next game or lose another game. It depends. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like the game needs to go back to being darker. I think what they've been doing with the story is suffering a lot because of the timeline stuff, because it doesn't allow for creativity to flow. Like, I think the timeline crutch needs to go away, and I think in order to do that, once they do that, it's going to make the story really flesh out, and just them being able to explore the other realms and talk about like the realms that still exist. Like, there's so much you could do with the story. It's just about implementing the proper plan and just kind of like going for it. Like, regardless if you want to play it safe. Like, I feel like the timeline stuff is playing it safe because they don't want to make a bad story, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of a bad story because it's timeline stuff. And I think at a certain point, people get tired of it. Like, Marvel has done the time stuff, and people that are annoyed with that, the timelines and the variants. Like, it's such a boring thing because we've seen it so many times. It's my problem. But anyways, I kind of would like to also talk about the PvE aspect. I felt like MK1 didn't have a good amount of PvE content. it took them forever to implement Towers of Time, and even then I feel like it's still not enough PvE action. Like MK11 had an insane amount, including the crypt, and honestly, like the Towers of Time were shifting, and you didn't even have to play the Towers of Time. You could have an AI do it for you, which made it so much cooler, because like sometimes people don't want to sit there and grind a tower 80 to 100 times a day. Like, it's such a pain in the ass. I know I don't want to do that shit. I'm gonna be honest, I have like other stuff I gotta do, like for video making and stuff like that. So that to me would be a huge waste of time. So if I can have an AI do it, like I kind of wish they brought back that concept from MK11. But anyways, I kind of want to see the PvE aspect be this a lot bigger compared to like MK1, because like, I feel like MK11 did a good job with the PvE content, so it gave people a break from just doing the online stuff. But just don't bring back evasions. That was dull. And I know some people like that, but I'm sorry, but evasions is boring as shit. Like doing the same thing every every couple months. It's the same thing. You go the same, do missions, do a couple mini games, you do this. I'm sorry, I just don't like evasions. I think it was such a bad. It was so bad. I don't know who thought about that idea, but it just wasn't good. So in lieu of that, I would rather them bring back a tag mode, make it and make it return instead of cameos, but make it so it's not forced. I don't like the fact that Mortal Kombat 1 forces you to play cameos instead of like having it being optional. Because like in Mortal Kombat 1, they've always had like elements of gameplay modes like that, but it was optional. Like, you know, custom combat, tag, all that was always like you didn't have to do it. Is what I'm saying. So like if you just wanted to stick with 1v1, that's cool. Like I think it was a really bad idea for them to kind of like force you to do it, because there are a bunch of fans that don't like assist fighters. They like Mortal Kombat 1 because it's a 1v1. Some people are just not, they're not fans of the assist fighters, and I think it was a kind of a bad move they made for that. But anyways, like, that's kind of like what I think about that. Like, and I just remember tag mode being hella fun in MK9, so I'd be ecstatic to see it be brought back. And I really don't want to hear about balancing issues. That's their job to figure it out. Like, if they have such a problem with balancing issues, maybe they should hire somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to balancing, and just kind of have him teach them the route to go. Like someone like maybe a Marvel game. I think Marvel Rivals does a really good job of buffing, because like when they buff somebody or when they nerf somebody, they buff something else about the character, so they don't fall off the deep end, kind of like what Mortal Kombat does. Mortal Kombat, when they go to nerf somebody, they nerf them. Like they nerf them into freaking the abyss. Like, it's so bad what they do to characters they feel like are broken. Like, I don't like it, if I'm being honest. But anyways, while this is not a game mode I want to talk about nuts, I like to see basically a return and just expanded upon this is the creative fighter mode. With today's tools, I feel like Mortal Kombat could really make an insane creative fighter mode with movesets and different cosmetics, and just there could be such a cool thing they could do with a creative fighter mode. Like, I think it would bring a different type of air, and you would have people making characters and posting it all over the place, and it'll really bring a lot to the game in terms of like seeing how creative people can be and what kind of other characters that they can make. Like, it'd just be cool to see a return back to that from Armageddon. I feel like it's been a long time. It's been like 5 games since we had it. Yeah, since Armageddon. So it would be cool to see the creative fighter mode kind of come back, and they've always kind of talked about it in the past, but they never really pulled the trigger on it. I think this game they should pull the trigger on it. Like, if they want to make it worth it, I think what they could do too is make certain gears or cosmetics or even special moves as like kind of like microtransactions. You know, regardless, they're gonna put microtransactions in this game. You just gotta accept it and just take the loss there, because eventually, like, you know, the microtransactions it's almost in every single game nowadays, outside of like particular cases. But especially fighting games, I think fighting games, there's a lot of microtransactions for character skins, for new characters, stages, and stuff like that. I'm gonna be honest, I prefer they didn't put it in for the next Mortal Kombat game, but monetization has been a thing since MK9 came back into the fold. So I imagine they're gonna have some kind of microtransactions, whether it be for a creative fighter or anything else. I really would like to see it return, if I'm being honest, but I don't know if NRS would ever do it. I think that it's kind of a low possibility. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we'll see in time. I think that it would be really good for the game's life, because, you know, other people like to just sit there and create characters and like make stories and stuff like that. Like, it would be cool to see if they did something like that. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not gonna fault them if they choose not to do it. But it would be a cool thing to see the creative fighter kind of come back. The next thing I want to talk about for what I want in the Mortal Kombat game, I don't think it's much of a secret, but I feel like the next game needs to have conquest. I think it needs to return. And at this point, I'm not debating anybody on whether it should or shouldn't anymore. It needs to return. This is not negotiable. It needs to return. Conquest was a staple in the 3D era, and it was an awesome mode, bro. Just to enjoy other stuff in the backstory of what's going on in the MK world, unlocking certain characters during certain times. I think to unlock Liu Kang, you had to like see him at nighttime, and I don't remember if it was Outworld or Earthrealm or Denia, like, but you had to fight him. I think he won. It was a long time ago, but I think it was something like that where that's how you unlock Liu Kang. And I'm gonna be honest, I think it's criminal that it's been missing from Mortal Kombat for almost 2 decades now, bro. Because like, what, the last one was 2006, 2007. We're in 2025. It's almost been 2 decades. Like, it's crazy. Like, honestly, like, I don't know why they just refuse to put conquest if they don't feel like they can do it. I know they can do it, bro. They may beat them up. They've done stuff. They've done conquest before, and they can really knock it out the ballpark. Like, especially when you think about it, this game was such a love letter to the 3D era. It's weird that Conquest was missing from the game, and they opted to put invasions instead. They took out the crypt and they put invasion. I don't know if I would have gone that route. I don't know if it was a good idea to put invasion in over the crypt or over conquest. But it is what it is. Like, we're past that already. What I would like to see in this conquest is I want them to change it up. Like, I want something different this time when it comes to conquest. And what I mean is, I want to see this new conquest mode kind of focus on the bad guys instead of the good guys. We've always seen the game story's always been from the good guys' perspective, but I want to see a conquest mode where it focuses on bad guys and establishing who they are. Because at this point, the good guys are strong, but the bad guys just seem like lesser in comparison to what the good guys are. So I think a good way to do this is to focus on the bad guys, like, because like if we really think about it, right? The 2 conquest modes we got was Deception and Armageddon. Deception, we got Shijinko. It kind of followed his path from novice warrior all the way to him being an old man. And then in Armageddon, it follows Taven's journey. He wakes up from a long slumber, finds out his parents were sadly murdered by his now corrupted brother. The journey itself was to decide the fates of mortals engaged in Mortal Kombat, and whether it be to kill combatants or just strip them of their abilities. That's kind of like the concept of those 2 conquests. This time I'd love to see it if they could follow General Shao as he begins to become Shao Kahn. It could even like just really tie into the story. Like, I'd like it to follow his journey from being a sick child to his betrayal of Sindel, all the way down to him betraying Onaga, possibly. This is my story type thing. So that's kind of like what I'm putting with. If they want to still make it a bad guy story without it being exactly my story, I'm fine with that too. But I would love to see like the journey from being a sick child all the way back to being the Shao Kahn we know, instead of just like somebody's lackey. You know what I mean? And I really think they could do some awesome things with a new conquest mode for sure. I know for a fact people would lose their minds if conquest ever returned. The blueprint is there, bro. You just gotta do it, man. I really don't know why they've been ignoring conquest. It's really baffling to me. Like, if I'm being honest, like, I don't know if it's a time crunch or Warner Brothers doesn't feel like it's worth putting in, but I just don't understand why they refuse to put it in. I just think that it just prints money, bro. Like, conquest mode is so damn good, bro. I don't understand why they just won't put it in. And I think it goes without saying that the crypt needs to return as well. No invasions, please. No more invasions. I'm tired of that shit. No freaking shrines where they don't restock the shrines. Just wasting. We just have a bunch of currency we can't use. Please, none of that stuff. That's boring. And then repetitive gameplay is not fun. Like, if it was like, I guess they try to do a grinding mode, but like, come on, bro. Nobody wants to do that. The same missions over and over again. Especially when you just think about MK11's script, when it was just so awesome, dude. Like, the puzzles, the jump scares, fighting bugs, like in the awesome aesthetics where you see costumes of Kenshi, you see a cool costume of Ermac. There's so many cool things to see, and you can just explore and just find new things every time. But all they really have to do is just expand on that. Like, in fact, like, it would be cool if they added more stuff like seasons similar to Invasions and just do that for the crypt and just like expand on that detail. Like, I think they could really do a good job if they do something like that. Like all the constant fights, I just didn't like it. And when it comes to invasions, like I really like this exploration aspect of MK11's crypt mode, because it felt like something fun that you could just do and just like kind of like zone out and just like have fun with without having to fight anybody and get tilted online. Like I think it was a cool PvE experience. If you like, honestly, you can even tie it into Conquest and Towers of Time, where the currency you earn the currency you earn basically from Towers of Time and Conquest could be used to unlock specific chests in the crypt. Or maybe you can do it so that you earn currency faster if you do Conquest online than online. It's just something to think about. I think there are ways you can approach this to where it makes sense. And you know, I just think that if you do things a certain way with this new crypt, you can make it really cool, especially with the way they were going with MK11's crypt. MK11's crypt was so fun and dope. Like if they could just expand on that, I think they'll be in a good space. Now, when it comes to customization, I think MK1 got a little lazy with it. I really want to see it really fleshed out in the next game, with like 4 to 5 cosmetics per character, as well as like the ability to paint each cosmetic. I don't mind if there's less versions of cosmetics in the game, as long as there are options to paint them with different unique patterns. Now, you may say that that's asking for a lot, but honestly, I don't really care, if I'm being honest. Like if they want us to keep shoveling out money and supporting Mortal Kombat now and into the future, they owe it to the consumers to create a game that's not only worth buying, but worth playing as well. They owe it to the fans, and I love Ed Boon. Trust me, I love Ed Boon. But come on, all I want is Mortal Kombat to stand the apex of while being competitive, while also not forgetting their casual audience as well. Something MK1 and MK11 kind of failed at both times, I think, because I felt like MK1 kind of put up the competitive players a little too much, while MK11 kind of ignored the competitive players and put the casual players. They need to find a good blend for the two, I think. If they could find that marker, I think that the next Mortal Kombat game would be in a good space. I know they can do it, man. It just takes a proper plan and the execution of that plan. Look, if you work at a job and your customers aren't happy with your service, what does your job do? Just say, they're just complaining, don't worry about it. They don't do that. Or do they talk to you about your service and give you a warning? And if it keeps happening, what do they do next? Oh, they might even fire you and replace you. Like, I'm not calling for anyone's job, but someone needs to be held accountable. That's all I'm saying for Chaos Reigns, and just for the failure of like not understanding what the community wants, and someone needs to be held accountable for it. And like, not saying fire them, but at least like kind of come together and find a solution to finding a balance for both player bases, so that like your next adaptation does well. And sure, MK1 sold 5 million copies, but that's on the merit of Mortal Kombat. The name of Mortal Kombat. It's not necessarily because Mortal Kombat 1 is such a great game. I think it's more of, it's Mortal Kombat. Everybody knows Mortal Kombat. Like, you know, anything attached to Mortal Kombat is gonna get views, it's gonna get watched. That's just how it is. Mortal Kombat is just that big of an IP. So I hope you guys can tell the difference. I'm sure that the majority of you guys, if you ever watched a Marvel movie, you know what I mean. Because like, you know, when you hear Marvel made the movie, you're gonna check it out because of all the previous movies in the past, like Iron Man, Captain America, the old Thor movies, and Endgame, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So when something's attached to the Marvel name or to a Mortal Kombat name, I feel like it's gonna get views and people are gonna watch it or play it. You know what I mean? So I really hope NRS learned a lesson from Chaos Reigns, because like, I'm gonna be honest, the fans weren't satisfied paying $50 for Chaos Reigns. It still feels a bit high, if I'm being honest. Especially for what we got. It should have been like $29.99 or perhaps $39. I think $39.99 would have been fine for me. But $50 it's basically like paying for almost a whole new game. And honestly, I don't feel like it was enough content to justify almost paying for a whole new game. So I think it's time for them to go back to the drawing board and kind of figure out why Aftermath did so much better than why Chaos Reigns did. Because Aftermath, in my opinion, was a great backup story to the original Mortal Kombat 11 story. But I feel like Aftermath's gonna fail to do that. And honestly, a big issue could have been the gender swap of Sector and Cyrax. I can't say. Maybe I'll take a poll on that and to see what people are saying. Why they didn't? What was the reason they didn't buy the Chaos Reigns? I think it also was the character choices, because not everybody was excited for the guest DLC characters. Meanwhile, people were happy to see Sector and Cyrax return, but it wasn't the versions that they wanted. And then new Cybot relatively different from his previous iterations. So who knows? Like there are so many different reasons that it could have been. And honestly, like while a lot of people didn't enjoy the story, I found key parts of the story to be interesting when they were talking about like Orin, like seeing Orin again from last time we seen them was in like Armageddon. So it was cool to see the dragon, and Tanya speaking the dragon tongue was also awesome. But yeah, I don't know. Like if I'm being honest, like I think that they need to just go back to the drawing board with the story DLCs. And I think if they plan it ahead of time and just plan everything and just figure out where you want to go for the past in this game in terms of story, I think they'll come out pretty much on top. And speaking about spending money on the game, I kind of want to talk about monetizations. I know it's every single gamer's favorite topic, especially to talk about. And when it comes to games nowadays, I don't know, bro. Like, monetization is such an annoying thing to talk about because, like, yes, I get that these companies want to make money, but sometimes they're overcharging for things. Like if you look back at MKX, when you would be able to pay $5.99, you would get 3 skins, versus like MK1 where you pay $10 and you get 1 skin. It's such a like huge jump in price for it. Like something was lesser value, you know what I mean? Like if they did like something like, I don't know, like $12, $13 for 3 skins or 4 skins, maybe it could have been different. But I don't know, I feel like they really upped the price of a lot of stuff in Mortal Kombat 1. And I know it was probably more of a Warner Brother move, but still, like it's just an issue, bro. But anyways, like speaking about spending money, let's talk about the monetization. I know it's every gamer's favorite subject to talk about when it comes to games nowadays, but it needs to be said, do not overcharge for skins. I really hope they learned their lesson with Mortal Kombat 1, because the prices for $10 for skins it's crazy, especially when you consider that the skins were just brought back from older games. Like there were some skins they added to the game that was fresh and new, and I was fine with those skins being $10. But when it's like past skins, $6, like you shouldn't have to pay that much money for skins that you've already seen in games before. Like it should be like a $5.99 or $6.99 type thing. $10 is a bit much, if I'm being honest. And like in the past, $6 netted you 3 skins. Like I said at MKX, like they had packs for the Halloween packs and stuff like that. This definitely was a Warner Brother move, if I'm being honest. I don't think this is an NRS move. If you're gonna charge a lot of money for skins, at least let there be a way to earn them from launch and not wait a year after to implement a system where you could earn currency. Like I know they did that on purpose because they want people to spend money in the first year, and then they just kind of wanted to do that. But if you're gonna have, because like you can have high pay monetization, but as long as you have a way to earn it, I think that it kind of like people will be more accepting to that, versus just charging an arm and a leg for like stage fatalities and, you know, acting surprised when people don't want to pay it. You know what I mean? I have no problem with paying for skins that are worth it, and this part really is for the people that are more selective with their money, that don't want to spend money on anything. I know Warner Brothers needs to make money, especially with a bunch of the flops and like kind of stuff that they failed at in recent years with the closing of so many different studios and shutting down of games. But there needs to be a way to earn currency on launch, and this is like a non-negotiable thing. Like you need to have, if you're gonna keep charging, and I'm okay if you want to charge these high prices for skins, at least be ways for us to earn it. Because I think that they did Towers of Time where you're able to earn currency as you play through the Towers of Time. I think that's a cool thing they did, and I think they should continue doing that. So we kind of already gone over story, we kind of gone over game modes, and we kind of went over currency and monetization stuff so far in this video. Now I kind of want to get to multiplayer, and I think, and I can't stress this enough, that there needs to be, and I mean there needs to be as least amount of issues as possible on launch. No player one advantage, no disconnecting, none of that. No, they need to add Wi-Fi filters on launch. It would be awesome for those that require it, because like honestly, I'm on Wi-Fi myself, so I don't really have complaints about that either way, but I think it'd be cool for people who care about that type of thing. The first 3 to 6 months needs to be as smooth as possible for the health of the game. Now, do I expect it to be perfect? Absolutely not. That would be impossible, but please have it together as much as possible, because I just don't want the game to be dead on launch. And what I mean is, like, I don't want it to be dead in the first couple months because of lack of attention to detail. I think it goes without saying that Mortal Kombat needs to go back to 1v1 style. I don't mind if they want to add separate modes for those interested in it, even if they want to bring back cameos. We saw, like, they could do the cameos as a side kind of game mode. Like we saw roster characters in the story in Mortal Kombat 1 be playable as cameos, so we know they can do it. It's just about the implementation that they can do it with. So I don't want to hear nothing about that they can't do it, especially if you're using roster characters you've already made movesets for anyways. Like, I know it wouldn't be difficult for them. It's just about planning it and just making sure you're getting stuff done the way it needs to be. Now, I'll be the first to say that I'm not a fan of cameos. Though I don't dislike the system more than some other characters, some other people online. I just think that this one should be one of those things where, like, it should be a separate game mode. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be something where you're forcing people to just be locked into a style. I just don't think it was a good idea by NRS. Like, Mortal Kombat for the last 30 years has been just about being around a 1v. It's always been a 1v1 game. So the fact that they locked you into this game mode, it's just crazy to me, because I don't feel like it was a good thing for the game. But like, other people who like the game system will say otherwise. You know, I don't know. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of it. Like, Mortal Kombat's always had like niche game modes that they would allow a game to have, but it was always optional. Like, normal 1v1 always existed in Mortal Kombat. This is the first time we saw it where it wasn't. So I don't know if it was a time crunch or why they couldn't just make it so that roster characters were treated as cameos. The only thing I can think about is that programming cameos for moves are probably a lot easier than adding a full-on roster characters. But you already have the roster character with moves, so you could just put those moves and tap and put it for the cameos. I don't know. I just hope NRS is paying more attention to the community's complaints and the concerns, and just write it down and bring it up in meetings. Like, okay, so the community feels this way about this, community feels this way about that, etc., etc. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there needs to be more emphasis on the community and not just like doing what they want to do, if I'm being honest. So that's just kind of how I feel that they should go forward if they want to create a game that the fans are going to like. Because at the end of the day, this is about us. It's not about them. It's not about NRS. Like, the NRS wants you to buy their products. So in order for you to buy the products, you have to make a game worth playing that your fans love and enjoy. But when you make these changes that hurt certain parts of the fan base, and like they don't like these changes, like, it's an issue, bro. Because like, I get that they want to envelop most the casual and the kind of audience, but they need to have features and stuff in the game that makes both of them happy. You can't just do everything you want to do and just like, you know, like, oh, those other people just complaining. It's not people just complaining. People have been fans of this game for this franchise for years. Like, it's like, bro, some of the people like 30, they've been a part of the game for like 30 years. So like, you know, their complaints are warranted when you change it too much. Like, there are ways you can implement the changes where it doesn't take away from the fans that, you know, have been following your game for a long time. I just hope in the next game, I want devs to interact more. For example, like, I feel like when the game was in a good state, they were everywhere, patting themselves on the back and just talking about how good the game is and yada yada yada. But when players were unhappy, they disappeared for weeks or months at a time. Like, you know, when it came out that Mortal Kombat 1 might get canceled, like, they got radio silent. Like, they wouldn't do nothing. I think Ed Boon went over to Blue Skies, and like, I don't know. Like, I've heard that they have they can't talk about certain things about Warner Brothers approval, but at the same time, like, having a personal thing where you should be able to talk online without speaking on that. You shouldn't be able to. If Warner Brothers is holding them back from talking at all to the community, that's terrible. People need to get on their case if that's the case, because you should not be forcing your way to deal with a video game studio if they can't even talk to the people that are buying their game. Like, you want to make money from Mortal Kombat, you got to realize that the game isn't about you. It's about the people buying the game. It's about the consumers. So if your consumers aren't happy with what you're doing, how do you expect to make money? You can't force people to buy the game if they don't like what you're doing. It's basically what I'm trying to say. I want to be honest, like, I'm a fair man, bro. I will give you props when you deserve it, but by that same token, I will also rip you to shreds when I feel like you deserve to be ripped to shreds. I'll never hate to hate. I believe in giving everybody their share shot. So Ed and NRS, please be more attentive to the community. They just want what's best for the game, and they're literally telling you what they want. And while I understand you can't cater to all the fans, you should be able to give a good enough answer for certain things. You know what I mean? One feature I kind of wish that I want to return, and honestly, this is more of the fun interactive features that they had back in the day. Let's take Mortal Kombat 9 for example. The features of the King of the Hill. right? I don't know how many of you guys were around during the glory days of MK9, but if you were, I think you'll remember exactly what I'm about to start talking about. If you were ever stuck in the King of the Hill waiting room, they had this cool waiting room, like an area where they had like, you had avatars set up, and like I played on Xbox 360, so basically the avatar you had for your Xbox account, like while you were waiting to fight, there was like 8 people I think waiting. The king had the crown and he was on a pedestal while the challenger was on the other pedestal, and they were fighting, and you could see like a whole stage and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. But the people that were waiting could do stuff like throw tomatoes at the screen or do some cool tricks while you waited for your turn. And like at the end of the match, you were even able to grade the match like a judge. And they kind of kept the aesthetic going forward, but like for MK9, it was like a cool thing to see. Like it was just a really cool aesthetic, and it really kept the Hill engaged in the match outside of the people just talking in it. Like there were so many cool things you could do. And like, if I'm being honest, King of the Hill kind of also ties into rooms, so I'm just gonna include that in this section here. So I think rooms, I don't even know why it wasn't in this game for the life of me. Like rooms are absolutely integral to any fighting game. I feel like NRS really dropped the ball with this one. Being able to check people's stats as well as seeing if they had a Wi-Fi connection also kind of lets people avoid annoying matches that they don't want to deal with. And I feel like not having rooms in MK1 was just a weird thing to see when they've had it for the past like what, 3 games? Yeah, the past 3 games. So, and plus, you know what, I kind of miss the message boards in the rooms, especially when like someone was like trolling in the lobby, talking spicy that, oh, no one can beat them, yada yada yada, but then you go and you have to do your part as the MK fan and just go and humble them real quick. I'm gonna be honest, I really miss the MK9 days, bro. I really wish they would just remake MK9. Like, if I'm being honest, I love MK9. I love MK9 so much, bro. I really wish they would just remake that game. But who knows if they'll ever do something like that. Anyways, I will give MK1 some props. I'm gonna be honest. Like, one of the cool things I think MK1 actually has done fairly well is this implementation of updates for certain editions, like adding new abilities and new game modes, like new modes, like the replay mode. The replay mode is such a dope thing that they did. Like, being able to practice against something that tripped you up in a match is such a clutch thing to have, bro. Like in a game like Mortal Kombat, where people have all types of things that they do, and like, it's just so nice to see something actually good that you can work on so that you don't get tripped up by the character doing that in the future. Because, like, you know, that's characters like Smoke who literally keep trapping you with the smoke cloud, and bro, being able to practice against that to get out of it is so cool, because like a lot of people get tripped up by that kind of thing. So I really hope they'll continue to add that feature in games going forward. As far as like the new abilities, I don't know if I believe they will continue doing abilities for the next game, although it would be cool to see. I think they should do it, like, but honestly it depends on how they implement the special moves. I think with Mortal Kombat 1, it's kind of unnecessary because some characters feel a little unbalanced compared to other characters. So I think that's kind of why they've been adding new moves. But if they do it the right way, they won't even need to add new moves, as long as the character works well with just that character, you know what I mean? If I'm being honest, my only gripe with the ability is, for characters specifically, if I'm being honest, is like Kung Lao's air buzzsaw. It's just, I don't know. When I first saw it, I thought it would be like a continuation of like MK9 combos, but it doesn't really work the same way. I really wish it did, like, if I'm being honest. And I've been trying to make it work, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, it's more of a me problem than anything NRS is doing. Unless, like, I wish they would have explained or showed some kind of moves, like how they want the move to be, because I don't know if it's supposed to be a combo ender, which I really hope it's not, because like, I thought the whole point of the air buzzsaw was to keep them in the air longer. So that's what I kind of thought was going to be their route, but it's just like, they're not in the air long enough to really do anything. Because like, even like with the implementation of Kitana's like new moves, it feels like Kitana's back to her MK9 days with all the fans and tosses and different ways she can keep you in the air. So I thought that was the route they were going to take with this move. Maybe I was just assuming too much, but you know, it's such a pain, bro. I really wish it worked that way, but at the end of the day, it's cool. So they're about to actually have another move for Kung Lao. He's gonna have like a air combo that bounces him off the ground, which I can't wait to test that out, if I'm being honest. Him and Madame Bo is gonna be crazy. I can't wait to see that. I feel like all the other special moves that they added, you know, have been pretty good outside of Kung Lao's, and that's more of a me problem, like I said. I'm probably gonna see what other people are doing with the combo online and see if I can like just change it and to see what I can do to keep combos going, because I think Scorpion's probably the best option in order to keep use with that combo because it kind of pushes the character back towards the player, which I just gotta get the timing down. The timing is a pain, yeah, but I'll get it down eventually. So one thing I would like to see going forward with updates is for them to be a little bit more light-handed with nerfs and buffs. I'm gonna be honest, like sometimes NRS can be too heavy-handed with characters in their games and nerf them a little too much, and I think they could learn a lesson from like a company like Marvel Rivals. And like, while granted they're kind of, you know, they're kind of new to the thing, I think the way they do updates for characters are pretty good. I think I said it earlier in the video, but when they nerf a character, they also buff something else about it so they don't fall too much off. They just kind of like go where the meta is going, you know what I mean? So like the characters are still usable after being nerfed. NRS has a really bad habit of balancing characters, I'll be honest. For example, I'll never forgive them for what they did to Sonya in Mortal Kombat 11. That bounce combo was like my favorite combo to do, and when they took it away, I was so upset, bro. I was so upset when they took the ground bounce and made it so it was a crushing blow counter instead of it just being part of her regular moves, bro. Because I used to abuse that. I was abusing that. That combo was my favorite combo in MK11, and honestly, I think I still play with Sonya, but I started playing with her less because they took away my favorite combo setup. So I think I switched over to Liu Kang, or I was playing a few other characters. Kung Lao. I think that's when I started getting back really heavy into Kung Lao. But yeah, that ticked me off. And the same thing with cameos, like in MK1, they nerfed the hell out of Cyrax into the ground because players were having difficulty dealing with him. I really wish they'd just bring other cameos up and kind of like make it so the meta is like always kind of changing along with the characters. I wish they were just doing slight buffs and nerfs instead of just nerfing characters into the ground. Like they gotta get better at balancing. I need them to get better at balancing for future games. It's like they needed to just like figure a way to get better at it. And like maybe it's asking for too much because NRS has never really been good at balancing characters. And you know, I don't know. We'll see. Like we'll see when the next game comes out if they learn the lesson. When it comes to Combat League, I'm gonna be honest. Like I don't really have big complaints about MK1's Combat League. I think it's fine. So you know, if they could just expand on it somehow and just add some cool stuff, I don't know. I didn't really think too much of Combat League. I don't think Combat League is like super important. It's just a rank mode for Mortal Kombat. I'm sure if I really sat down and think about it, there's some things that I could probably come up with. But for the sake of the video, this video is already gonna be long as hell, and I really don't want to be super long. So I'm trying to like rush through this as fast as possible for you guys. But anyways, one of the main things I wanted to talk about in this video is kind of like I really want to talk about NRS picking a fighting system and sticking with it. Like I think it's time for Mortal Kombat to become a legacy game, and I kind of talked about this in a few videos in the past, but I think it's time to really just talk about what that means for me, what it wants to be. I think the constant change to gameplay every game really holds back its potential in other departments. Now you may ask yourself, can it afford to change?
And I am sure you're asking yourselves, can I afford it? But the true question you must ask is, can I afford to be without it?
With the way the devs have been implementing systems in the past 2 games, the constant changes has honestly, I feel like, impacted the game heavily, and it's taken away from other things they could be focused on. Let's talk about when an owner buys a store. I'm going to use this as an example to kind of like, while it's not the same thing as a video game, I think it's close enough to where you can understand what I'm talking about in terms of running a team and stuff like that. So when an owner buys a store, let's say Taco Bell, for example, since I've worked at one, so I know how that works. While it's not the same, it's not to the same degree as a gaming studio. When a new owner buys a store, everything changes. They change the structure of how schedules may be posted. They might change what hours you work for, or even like how the cleaning is done. Or what about the new management? Having new stricter managers really messes with company morale. You can go from one day loving your job to absolutely hating it. What I'm trying to say here is change isn't always a good thing. Like, it always has rippling effects. The constant changing of combat systems needs to be stopped, if I'm being honest. Sticking with a system and just adding to it, I think is the best way to go. So I like Mortal Kombat 1's combo system, so I'm fine with them sticking with that, as long as they kind of remove the cameos. Like I said, that could be its own separate mode. I think the combo styles, like with the air combos and everything, I think that was awesome, bro. They have like certain characters that already work well without cameos. So I know that for a fact that they can do this, and we've seen in previous games they can make good combos. MKS, MK9, baller games. Absolutely love the fighting system in both games. So I know for a fact that they can do it, bro. They just gotta add to that combat system. One thing I feel like MK1 really lacks is a lack of defensive options. And honestly, I never really thought about it until I actually started listening to MK Tom Brady break down what about defensive options. Obviously, Brady is a big Sub-Zero fan, and you know Sub-Zero is really a good defensive character. So he was bringing up a bunch of things, and he really made some good points. MK1 seems to be so focused on offense that it completely ignores defense outside of breakers and up blocks. And I'm gonna be honest, I never really use up block, if I'm being honest. So if they took it out, it wouldn't be nothing, because I usually just anti-air anybody anyways, because I feel like the up block is kind of a waste of bar in my opinion. I don't really like using it, so it really wouldn't bother me that much. So honestly, one defensive mechanic I wish they would bring back, and I thought I always loved, was in MK11, was the one where you could roll. When you can roll out of certain moves. I think that defensive mechanic is awesome, and you can really do an ambush with that move, or you can run away and just give yourself some space from the opponent. So I think bringing that move back while also keeping, you know, breakers and stuff like that, and just expanding on the combat system would be cool, because it shouldn't, a fighting game should never just be about offensive capabilities. It needs to be defensive capabilities to match that. That's why, like, you know, as much as people hate zoners play a good part in keeping offensive players in check. So it would be cool to see something like MK11 or MK11's rolling mechanic make a return in the next game. Because then you would have to worry about, are they going to armor through your attack, or are they going to roll away, or can they ambush you by rolling away? You know, stuff like that. Like, I think that there should be more guessing involved, and like you just not having your turn over and over and over again because you have a cameo that allows you to keep taking turns. Like, that's, to me, that's one thing I really don't like about cameos, is that when some characters feel like they don't ever give up their turn, and while you can blame it on frame data, a lot of people are more casual based and don't, you know, they don't really want to have to deal with that. And like, you know, if you're a real competitive heavy and like you feel like everyone should just get good, that's fine. But at the end of the day, if you're catering to both the competitive scene and the casuals, you got to understand that some people may not want to invest that much time to do certain things like that. So there should be like some mechanics that are easier for them to do, is all I'm trying to say with making that kind of point. So anyways, like, I really wish they would bring that back, because like being able to have opponents second guess when you're on offense, like, I think it's cool, because like you shouldn't just be able to just rush down the whole time. But like I was saying, I want them to keep the core fighting game style that they have with MK1 and just build on it. Make additions to it instead of constantly changing it over and over again. And like, one thing I kind of want to talk about, and I really hate, is that constant input changes in Mortal Kombat. I think Street Fighter does a good job with inputs. Like, I haven't played Street Fighter in a long time, probably since like Street Fighter 4, and I know for a fact I can get on Street Fighter right now, and I know how to do a Shoryuken, or I know how to do Hadouken. Like, they don't change inputs. You know the input already. One thing I really hate about Mortal Kombat is that the inputs constantly change, and while it's probably a small annoyance to people, I think that, you know, it's something that kind of like gets a little annoying because you have to learn over and over again. But that's more of an annoyance to me rather than being a huge issue. I really wish they would just kind of stick with an input and kind of like keep it that way instead of like constantly changing, because I feel like they don't switch up the characters enough for them to like warrant constantly changing, and each character can have the same inputs. Like, they're not the same. Like, I don't really understand why they don't just keep the inputs. I don't know, like, maybe somebody can explain that to me, but it's just an annoyance. And like, you know, it's kind of easily avoidable if they really just plan the thing by just looking at previous movesets. But that's the main thing. I think like back forward should be Scorpion Spear, and down forward X should be the Ice Ball or something like that, instead of it constantly changing every game. But anyways, that's just kind of like how I felt about that. And like, I just want them to make MK a more of a legacy type game. And like, I also think it would do wonders for its development. And while I'm not a game developer, I've been both a manager and a general manager, so I understand how planning projects and stuff like that can be beneficial for you and your staff by having like a core idea of what you want to do. So I think I know a thing or two about leading people, and how like changing anything in a project can honestly be a dampener, and like just apply some effects that you normally wouldn't really have to have if you just plan things the right way. Is all I'm trying to say. So anyways, I just think it would go a long way to make Mortal Kombat awesome again. And I really just hate the way Mortal Kombat is, especially where we're at right now in the state where it's not even like top 3 at Evo anymore. Now it's dropped all the way to 7. And like, I know there's multiple content creators have talked about it in the past, and I'm really not trying to bring up the Evo numbers back up, but come on, not even 2 years into Mortal Kombat 1's life cycle, and it only having 645 players competing, it's kind of ridiculous. No matter how you spin it, you can love, you could be a fan, or you could be a stan, or whatever you want to do. Say you are, like, it's not okay when you compare it to like its competitors, like Street Fighter 6, which was out before Mortal Kombat 1 and has 5,255 players competing at Evo, and then you have Tekken 8, who literally has 4,645 players competing at Evo. Like, no matter how you paint it, like it's not a good look for Mortal Kombat 1. And like, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going wrong with their game. If they just listen to what casual and the competitive players are saying, you'll pretty much figure out what's wrong and what people like or dislike pretty quickly if you just pay attention and keep your ear to the ground. I might have ranted a bit there, but I feel like it was kind of necessary to really talk about like how everything is with the whole, like, why I want a legacy game and why I think certain features should be in it, and like how much easier it would be for them themselves if they would just make a system and stick with it instead of trying to reinvent the wheel every freaking game. Like, I don't understand why they do this to themselves. Like, it's so dumb, bro. Like, you could constantly change it. Like, the Mortal Kombat 9 had a different system from MKX, had a different system from Mortal Kombat 9, and MK11 was probably kind of close to MK11, but then it was also kind of different about it. And then MK1 system is completely different from all the previous iterations. Like, I feel like they should get a system and stick with it. If they find a core system they have and stick with it, I think it would do wonders for the development and just like being able to get more stuff done, if I'm being honest. Like, it's just something I wanted to get off my chest. But anyways, those are the reasons I feel like Mortal Kombat should be become a legacy game, because I think it will do wonders for everything that goes along with it. I know this video was long, and I'm looking at it now, and it's probably gonna be over an hour. And like, I really hope you guys stayed for all of it, and if you did, dude, that's awesome. You're a champ, dude. I know there's a lot to soak on this video, and like, I just kind of want to talk about things I wanted to see, and kind of like all the things that I thought would make the next game kind of good, like a really good, you know what I mean? So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys have like different ideas of things that you think should be in the game and stuff that you want to see change, whether it be individual characters, like, I don't know, I wanted to talk about characters I wanted to see in the next game, but I feel like that'd be better for its own separate video because of what MK1 set up in story. Like, I think certain characters have to return to really continue on with certain things like that. So I think it's just something that certain things need to be addressed. So I think I'll do that in a separate video if you guys really want to see characters I want in the game. But I didn't want to make this video any longer. It's already over an hour, and I don't know. We'll talk about that in a separate video. It's what I'm trying to say. So obviously, story, gameplay, mechanics, everything I think should be added in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed that part, and if you guys did, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think about everything that I talked about in this video in terms of story and everything like that. One last thing I do want to talk about before I get out of here is the next story in my fan story, Life After the End of All Things. Now, if you guys haven't seen the story, I'll probably post it somewhere at the end of the video, that way you guys can check it out. Basically, this next story is I'm gonna start getting ready to do it. I got the script done. I just need to start hiring the voice actors for it, and then I'll start editing the video and seeing what I can do with it. So I'm gonna put it somewhere, but this time around I want the story is going to be a more of an emotional story, because the first story was just to set up the world so people know what's going on with Liu Kang and Raiden, and then this next story is going to be a lot of more bad stuff happening to Liu Kang because of the timeline and just him coming to grips with his failures and all that stuff. So I want it to be more emotional. I think you guys will really like it. I already had a friend read the story and they gave pretty good feedback on it, so I'm gonna start getting ready to do that second video. I think I might release this one in parts, and then towards the end we'll probably put it in one big video, but it just depends. Yeah, so like I said, I'll put it somewhere in the end credits or something like that, so you guys can check it out if you want. You know, that first story I felt was really good. There was a bunch of good parts, but there's some stuff I could have done better. But anyways, like, I kind of just wanted to talk about all that stuff in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This video is long enough without me yapping on. Anyways, I'm out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts about the next game and what you feel like should be added or not added in the game. I'm out. Peace.
Yeah.